Dori was born in New York and grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. She met her husband at a Jewish singles meeting and they were married in 1976. The family moved to Reading in the early 1980s. Dori has been an active member of RCOS Sisterhood and Hadassah throughout her life. She enjoys playing mahjong and is a member of the Friendship Circle group.
My Jewish story begins at the age of 5 when I attended kindergarten religious school. My religious school training went all through the way to confirmation. I started Hebrew in the 4th grade, going every Tuesday after school. When I was growing up, girls were not bat mitzvahed. My Nana and my grandmother were my biggest Jewish influences. When they did not want anyone to know what they were saying, I remember them lapsing into Yiddish. We children always knew it was about us because they would look right at us as they were speaking. I remember my mother being very active in our synagogue sisterhood. My mother was also president of a chapter of Hadassah. Hadassah awarded her the Woman of Valor Award, which hung prominently in our family room. When I turned 18, my mother made me a life member of Hadassah. Growing up, holidays were a very big deal in our home. My grandparents thought Hanukkah was magical. I remember traveling to New Jersey for our annual family circle Hanukkah parties. When we would arrive, the children were allowed to go say hello to the grown-ups. Then we were ushered into our children's room for our own Hanukkah party. Many years later, when they no longer met, my mother carried on the tradition of a family Hanukkah party. Every year we would go into the dining room, stand in the picture window, and light the menorahs. As you look at the photographs, you can see how the adults have aged and how the children had grown. The only thing that remained the same were the menorahs. Passover was also a major holiday for us. Most years there was a Seder for at least 20 people, and we read the whole thing. My father would hide the afikomen, and the finder of the afikomen would receive $5. The other seekers would get $1. He didn't want anyone to feel left out. When we moved to Reading, Alan and I wanted to find a synagogue so that Michael could follow in our Jewish path. We're at a crossroads, though, when we began to look. Alan grew up Reform, and I grew up conservative. We went to different synagogues in the area to find a synagogue that we liked. We always found ourselves back at RCOS. Every time we would attend, someone would come over and say hello during an oneg. On one such oneg, someone came over and brought us over to Rabbi Weitzman and introduced us to him. From then on, we became members because we always felt welcome. Shortly thereafter, someone called me and invited me to a sisterhood luncheon. When I arrived, she was there waiting for me and took me inside to introduce me to many of the attendees. Michael attended religious school such as we had and went all the way through confirmation. Many years later, I found myself teaching kindergarten at RCOS. I also became an adult bat mitzvah. I read from the Torah for my 65th birthday. I once again found myself walking in my mother's footsteps and became active in the sisterhood at RCOS. I was on the sisterhood board for 4 years. After Alan passed away, it was Rabbi Michelson and Federation that reached out for support. Sari phoned me and invited me to a Living with Lost group meeting. Out of those meetings, a friendship was formed. Sari then invited me to a Friendship Circle luncheon, and I have been going ever since. Federation always seems to know when someone in the community needs some kind of support.
The Jewish Federation of Reading hopes you enjoyed this story and getting to know a fellow Jew living in Berks County. Federation is the central organization for issues affecting all Jews in Berks County. It represents us all, working closely in cooperation with local synagogues and community partners. Your gift to Federation supports our Jewish community here in Berks County, in Israel, and around the world. You provide cultural programs through the JCC. You assist Berks County Jews in need through Jewish Family Service. You combat the growing problem of anti-Semitism. You fund Jewish education for the next generation. To continue these services, we ask you to participate in a very special community campaign. During 2020, generous community members will match dollar-for-dollar campaign increases from both new donors and longtime contributors. Every new or additional campaign dollar donated in 2020 becomes two. If you're not yet a contributor, please consider starting. If you're already a contributor, please consider increasing your gift. Your campaign contribution to Federation keeps our story of Jewish life going here in Berks County.